Hello, thanks for joining me. I'm DBJ, and today on Monster Monday, we're going to talk about backyard beasties, um, using monsters in that are exotic and rare and wild and dangerous, and just making them commonplace. Um, one method of one big reason why I love the idea of making monsters common is often as a game master or dungeon master or storyteller, we don't get a chance to use them because a lot of them can be very bizarre and exotic and do strange things, and we don't get a chance to have the player characters interact with them. So what you can do is make something that is very exotic, very commonplace. Now, of course, it doesn't have to be completely commonplace amongst um, the entire world. We have very common examples of this in our everyday life. For example, um, when Europeans traveled to Australia, they took with them rabbits, and the people there may not have seen rabbits, but the Europeans were extremely associated with them. So the predators there and the people that lived there, the indigenous people, did not see them before. So to them, it was very exotic. The same could be said for here in the States, where I live in Central Ohio. We don't have alligators, but if you live in Florida, which is a big giant swamp, they deal with alligators all the time if you live in a swampy area. The same could be said for places where scorpions or rattlesnakes or bears or something like that. And so a that is a commonplace thing here in the United States. So imagine if we take that and expand that further out. One other example: if you are a person that lives in a coastal region, in the ocean, you're used to jellyfish and maybe sharks or dolphins or something of that nature. And those of us that are landlocked, that is not a commonplace thing we see. And so we may not, our reactions to seeing or interacting with those things might be hideously different. All right. So, um, one reason that I brought up is that we don't really get a chance to use those monsters and creatures and things. So um, I like the idea of say wyverns and giant lizards and just dinosaurs or something being a commonplace thing in a specific section of the world, and then the people there, the indigenous people, have a healthy respect and knowledge with their interaction with something that is uh, very lethal or dangerous, or exotic. So, for example, if you have people, um, what's the adventure? Tomb of Annihilation takes place on the island of Cholt, and the people on the island of Cholt that live in the jungles, they have dinosaur races, and dinosaurs can be very, very dangerous creatures. If they are um, predators, they could be, your average adventurers like, hey, we need to slay this thing, and somebody else is going, no, that thing is quick. It makes a great mount for my race. Let's go capture it and train it, and domesticate it or something like that. So another good excuse for using reason for using backyard beasties is it allows you to expand the mind on what the culture would be like. So, for example, a big example is the use of spiders by the dark elves, the drow, or I would say classically in the history of Dungeons and Dragons. So, you if you have a race of people that uses or a culture of people that uses spiders, they're used to maybe riding them if they're giant sized, they're mounts, so they're used to riding them upside down and across dangerous areas and the cliff sides and between stalagmites and stalactites if they're subterranean people. So this means that their battle tactics might not be going into battle with thousands of troops or something, riding across the fields, but instead they may have, maybe hundreds of troops, and they use hit and run tactics. They may also harvest the poison from spiders. They may harvest the silk webbing from spiders and use it to make clothing or cloaks or armor. They may use the hardened shells of spiders or their claws as weapons, using them as daggers or the points of weapons like swords or spears or something. They may cherish the spiders, and so they may house special locations where spiders can lay their eggs and spin them into a cocoon, and the people protect them. They may sell the spider eggs on the market. That may be a value that the player characters may not be aware of. Spiders also do other things. They not just spin webs, but they're like trapdoor spiders. There's spider venom. There's that can be harvested. There's spiders that can leap. There's spiders who maybe have a great camouflage. Spiders also can trap their victims. So if these people are riding spiders, they can have the spider trap their victims, and then they can drag their victims with them, maybe capturing them as slaves. And as you can see, a lot of that has been adopted by drow elves in their culture using spiders. So other powerful, dangerous creatures could modify the culture, or you can build off of the creature and make a culture out of them. Like off the top of my head, there are and I'm thinking of creatures as mounts for right now. So I'm thinking like wyverns or giant turtles or purple worms or anything like that. But backyard beasties could also be something that are used as pets. So maybe they're not large enough to ride, but they make great they make great guard creatures, like guard dogs. So there could be a displacer beast that patrol a neighborhood. There could be like two-headed devil dogs or something, or death dogs. There could be oozes could be used in the culture to as in Eberron, the city of Sharn, that rises into the sky. The lower depths, the sewer systems are cleaned out by oozes, and there are like ooze wranglers that use prods and poke the oozes so they can clean out the system, because without doing that, without a clean sewer system, the place would quickly fill with the waste and decay and feces and such of the people that live in the city. So to them, oozes they are dangerous, but they are used to being corralled. So maybe you have like dwarves and halflings and gnomes in like thick gloves and goggles, and cattle prods poking and pushing the oozes around. There may even be some workers that have a feel, like an affinity for the oozes, and don't feel that they're just like a useful tool, but should be cultivated. The same goes for the Atiag, the big creature with the mouth in the center of its head, and a couple of tentacles, and splayed out feet, like tripod feet that eats the waste and feces down in the subterranean areas and sewer systems. They might be a needed use for a certain culture that lives in the subterranean, or lives in the bowels of a city. And so to them, sure, if you make a misstep where maybe you smell wrong, or you shine a light too bright, maybe it will attack you, but they're used to it. So they go feed this creature, and in return it protects them or something. But harnessing the skin of a particular creature, maybe the people ride around on giant lizards, or they use owlbears or something like that. And so if the creature passes away, or is killed, or is held in large herds, when they kill it, they eat the meat, they use the skin, they use the claws and eyes and the beak and the mouth and that kind of thing. And therefore it can dictate some of their culture. So people that wear owlbear skins, maybe powerful hunters. They may have a higher social status in their group. If they are tribal, in large cities, maybe there's a high price for them because they're harvested from, the owlbear, the owlbear herds that roam the outskirts or something. And of course, you can have your specialists. So you have like your rangers and your rogue scouts and your druids that specialize in hunting down, um, taking care of, and then ultimately killing and harvesting their bodies um, for the use of whatever it is they have. So if the people ride on like flying wyverns, with their scorpion like, or tails with the little venom in the tails, sure, you can have guards that ride them and fly through the air, and then the wyverns help attack outsiders that try to approach their community, but also they may use that very skin as in their armor, in their clothing. They may have the bones, the skulls and bones that have been bleached and attached to the outskirts of a giant castle, or put on poles when you just before people approach the city as a warning or as a sign of uh, this is what we are about. Beware when you enter. Um, Maybe as a political tool, wyvern venom is used and harnessed and harvested, and then their opponents are poisoned. So on the outside, it seems like people are nice and smiling in each other's face, but behind closed doors, maybe there's tons of assassins hiding in the shadows of um, bards from the College of Whispers poisoning opponents, and so the player characters may get involved in all kinds of like machinations, maybe blamed on a murder or something like that. So using backyard beasts, I think, is a great tool to expand the world. And I also like using the idea that there's a term about a term of using low magic or high magic. And I think there's this middle ground that many of us, it may not have a name, but many of us like to dwell in. And I love the idea of a low magic setting, but very exotic elements to it. So, for example, you can have a low magic setting, but people ride dinosaurs, or a low magic setting, but there are, giant spiders, giant wolves, displacer beasts, blink dogs, those kind of things that exist in the world, and to specific cultures that the player characters come in contact with, it's not a big deal to them. RP Gamer says, even if an animal wasn't commonplace, if it was seen to have a value, then it would be taken and domesticated like wolves in our world. Absolutely. And just like in our world, wolves are very dangerous in the wild. Your average city dweller that goes out into the wild, surrounded by a pack of wolves, would be would be at a complete loss. There's a movie called The Grey with Liam Neeson that is a great example of, I'll say, commoners. Plane crashes, they fall in the wild, and then they are picked off one by one by a pack of wolves. Yet at the same time, like here in the States, there's indigenous people, Native Americans, and to them, wolves are just another part of the culture. Respect them, maybe leave a little, if you go hunting, you leave a little tribute to the wolves themselves, and then maybe eventually one or more of those wolves will come close, and then eventually they become domesticated. They become one with the culture. And so when the player characters encounter these, wolves, and of course using the word wolves to replace it with any dangerous creature, when they come upon a culture of people that are just like petting these things, it's like, what's a really bad one? okay, land sharks, the boulet, or the bullet, as some people like to call it. Although, uh, whatever, it's a pretty dangerous, iconic Dungeons and Dragons monster. This land shark, this thing that looks like it has no eyes, that swims through the earth and leaps up and jumps on people, um, almost like a very dangerous armadillo of sorts. And imagine a culture that has befriended these things, that knows that they're dangerous, but maybe rides on top of them, or lives in stilt cities where, or tall plateaus, and maybe they dangle food off of like ropes and cables to lure them close. And maybe these boulets, these land sharks, have gotten used to it, and so now whenever they see these people, they're like, oh, well, they give us food. Sure, we'll patrol around their community. And so when the player characters come across the plains and they see these massive cities up on stilts or on top of these plateaus, and they're attacked by the boulets, and then you see like a tribesman grab a horn and blow a horn, and then the boulets, the land sharks swim away as they burrow through the earth. It might become a shock to the player characters. And then there's the threat that if the player characters do something untowards to the culture, hey, they can just snap their fingers and boom, here comes, I guess it would be not a pride, but maybe a swarm, or what would be a fish version? Not a flock, but you understand what I'm saying, where the tribes people snap their fingers, and then coming into the city are these dangerous creatures that the player characters are not used to seeing in like an urbanized or civilized setting. RP Gamer says, exactly like cats. They began hanging around humans because farmers would reward them for dealing with rodents when we first began farming. And so, right, they're creatures, what we consider mundane creatures, many times were used to deal with a particular problem. And whatever that problem may be, whether it's safety from the elements, or food, or hunting other creatures. For example, domesticating predatory birds to help with hunting small game, right? Prue says school of fish. Thank you. A school of fish. Oh, my brain just farted. So, but yes, a school of land sharks would be quite dangerous. But yeah, people use animals in our world to solve a problem. So maybe those animals are great trackers. Those animals protect humanity when they sleep. Those animals can find safe locations when the weather is bad. Those animals have a shell, like maybe it's a giant insect or a turtle, and that can be used to defend themselves in battle by creating shields and armor, or even hiding inside the shell of a turtle after it's dead and after eating its flesh and such. And so by figuring out what the problem is, and then the natural creatures around, and then figuring out how they solve that problem, makes for a great like a cultural aspect that the player characters may be completely amazed by when they arrive. So for example, the use of a coastal people befriending killer whales or dolphins or something of that nature, where normally we can't communicate with them, but maybe the people have grown to make specific sounds or whistles to call the dolphins. And then in return, and the dolphins are great fishers, so maybe the dolphins help make little fish balls where they corral the fish in the school of fish into a ball to go hunting, and then they share that with humanity above. And then in return, they maybe have these coastal pools of water where they can protect the young of the dolphin, so that the dolphin families have a trust humanity. RP Gamer says sharks go by many names, Prue Prue. I prefer a frenzy of land sharks. Yeah, a frenzy of land sharks would be they're it's pretty nasty things. I think the land sharks in Dungeons and Dragons aren't put on a pedestal. I think they should be. I don't know how the owlbear moved up there. Yeah, I know Illithids and beholders are way up there because they're pretty smart, but land sharks are pretty damn dangerous. But you can go even further with some of these creatures by expanding on their growth and development. So, for example, like hydras may lay eggs, and maybe they're very small, and so children may raise them and name them and cultivate them for their color and their skin and their size. And then as they get older, as the children grow older, the hydras also grow older, and so maybe they become like they separate off and become their own they protect their own cities, and this may be their like rite of passage in a way that the young child or prince or hunter or warrior or knight that can raise a hydra to become, full size, 30-foot monstrosity without it, killing them, may be able to get their own lands and may become, almost knighted by the Grand King or Khan or Rex of this community. And so then they are given their own community. A hydra is placed as a shield on their as a banner, so that they can leave these flags out, and people will know that this king has a hydra. And so that whenever the king comes out or the knight comes out amongst his people, there's this giant hydra, and the people cheer as it walks through the city and such. That, and maybe they capture their enemies and feed the enemies, political or otherwise, or slaves or something, to the hydra to keep it fed because it has to eat so much. Or the farmers tithe, beef and pork from the cows and pigs and such, and or maybe they raise like bison and boars or what have you, and then everybody from each portion of the community goes and feeds this hydra, and then the punishment is, well, you haven't brought 20 cows or chickens or whatever from your community. Maybe the hydra needs to go pay you a visit. Also, let's get back to some practicalities as well. Sometimes having the players have to travel thousands of miles away to encounter some exotic creatures, I don't want to say can be boring, could be kind of trite in a way. When you have common people living in a world of fantasy and exotic magic and arcane spells, that it just goes to show that they should have some kind of connection with that, and not just be such a commoner that every time they see someone cast a burning hand spell or a mage hand cantrip, that they're always amazed that maybe some of these things are just a very commonplace thing, like, oh yeah, no, we live around elementalists, and we're just used to seeing elemental creatures and jinn in our community because it's just a normal thing. We harness them to the winds of an air elemental to blow our ships, and we harness the fire elementals to ignite our forges. It's not a big deal. It's just a normal thing. What do you use in your culture? We just have earth elementals protect our borders, and we fight side by side with them. I don't see a big deal with that. I can't imagine living without elementals in and around our communities and such. That's why we give thanks to them and such. So yeah. Also, with books like you got your monster manuals and your fiend folios and your tome of beasts and Mordenkainen's guide and Xanathar's guide and all these books, and sometimes we just want to use the creatures in them. We're like, man, that is really cool. I want to use them. And so having a laundry list of backyard beasts is a really good thing. So also, let's not forget that although I seem to have been talking about non intelligent beasts, more animal intelligence, you can have a ton of fun um, with intelligent beasts or humanoid beasts, right? So, for example, minotaurs and satyrs and centaurs may be common um, amongst a people that live on the plains. They Minotaurs and ogres might be just hired bodyguards in a major city. Um, what's creatures like the cloaker, or what's another one? Um, the nearly boneless choker creature. You know, that they may live in cities and alleyways or something, and the cloaker might be a sign of like honor amongst assassins and thieves and ne'er-do-wells, who the cloaker picks them as a almost a like it's humanoid sentient version of not a parasite but a symbiote, right? So now the cloaker attaches itself and becomes the cloak of a major crime figure, or um, a ghast that is that runs a group of ghouls, and maybe he's got a flock of, you know, giant vultures or something that follows them around, and then wears this cloaker that sits on its shoulders, and anyone that dares to threaten it, you know, the cloaker attacks it. And of course, the cloaker has plenty of prey without having to go hunting itself, because it has a symbiotic relationship with someone it has picked, so it rides on its shoulders or something. And sure, it may not make sense. Usually a lot of this stuff I just come off the top of my head, but yeah, maybe there are city dwellers that harness giant spiders, and maybe the spiders are big enough to ride, or maybe they're more like dog and cat sized, and they're used to send messages, to attack opponents, to use as scare tactics and threats against those that have something to say against a particular faction. RP Gamer says the centaurs may come with their own set of domesticated or friendly beasts, because I doubt they pull their own wagons. Yeah, they might have. Centaurs might have an attitude about the idea of people riding on their back. Like, that might not be their thing, right? A little bit rude if you say, hey, you know, here's a saddle, and the centaur is going to have a big attitude, like, okay, what are you going to do? Put a thing in my mouth and domesticate me, you little bastard, you know? But yeah, centaurs will absolutely, while they are very strong, they may not want to lower themselves to pulling wagons and such. So maybe centaurs have domesticated some form of like hippogriff or griffins, or even owlbears, or wow, some kind of giant lizard or something. Heck, even basilisks, or what's a creature? The name is Behir, or Behir. Anyway, maybe they've domesticated some creature like that and use them as pack animals, as protectors in the community. Easily, centaurs would domesticate wolves, dire wolves and wargs, because they're larger. So maybe those, or if they live in a cold region, maybe they've domesticated winter wolves, and so your centaurs might have like more of a woolly look to them, so they may not be horse-like. Prue says, yes, I was just about to suggest the Behir. I love them, and it's kind of again an unsung, to me, an unsung hero of Monster, right? It's like a combination centipede, lightning breather, you know, big creature swallowing kind of thing. And so maybe maybe giants have domesticated them, or even maybe a community that lives in a mountainous region with a lot of like static electricity, ozone, thunderstorms, heat, lightning, may use them and their eggs, selling them um, training them as monsters to protect the community, or as pit fighters, or used. Pru says they're insane when used with a bit of creativity. Exactly. And then, of course, you know, we're I've been describing pretty much all of this as a natural part of society, but you can add a little twist um, of arcana into it. So, for example, maybe the gods um, give a sign to oracles or something, and then they go down to the beach, and when they go down to the beach, they find the like eggs or something, and then those eggs are then cultivated, and so these creatures might be like a blessing from the gods of sorts. Although the people could be convinced they're a blessing from the gods, and it could just be a normal part of society, but they could be deposited there by an outer worldly being, or imagine a culture completely dedicated, like almost like a warlock, but the culture is the entire culture has a warlock patron, and so that warlock patron gives them bits and pieces of itself to them in the form of these monsters or creatures. So maybe people raise basilisks, but they don't turn to stone, or they have the ability to order the basilisks to turn others to stone, and maybe they wear shrouds over their faces so that they uh, um, the trainers, the ones who ride on the back of basilisks or use them as like guard animals, um, do not quite see the basilisk, so maybe they wear goggles or a shroud that covers their eyes so they don't look directly into the basilisk's gaze, but they use them against other people. The same thing with like a cockatrice or something like that. So if it's a creature, or what's another one, a gorgon that breathes out, you know, uh, that breathes out this mist or smoke that turns other people into stone. So maybe the people cultivate them, and those who are turned to stone, hey, that's the our godling, our demigod, our patron. Maybe you did something wrong. That's your fault for turning to stone. You must have committed some kind of crime against our culture. So, and then of course you can start describing the statues that people see that look very lifelike and in odd positions of terror or surprise, that are on the outskirts of the city. And then when the people come into the city, they see these gargoyles up on the top of the buildings, and then the gargoyles start to move, and then you're like, whoa, those are creatures. And then maybe they are gargoyles now that I just thought about it. There's a cartoon about called Gargoyles that was awesome. Oh, one day they should bring that back. Netflix, come on, these streaming services, bring that cartoon back. But yeah, gargoyles and basilisks and things like that. RP Gamer says maybe the fact that they use different beasts than the norm is because those animals are precious in their culture. Absolutely. I grew up around a culture of, there was a religious sect in my neighborhood that valued cows, and they had a cow in the back, and it was just a normal thing. You see these people with their shaved head and saffron robes. The name of the religion is on the tip of my tongue, but I don't want to disrespect it. But it was just a normal thing. They would come into Wawa, which is like the name of a community 24-hour convenience store, similar to UDF here in Central Ohio, but any 24-hour place like 7-Eleven, et cetera, et cetera. But Wawa, which was named after the name of the sound of geese by indigenous people, was a local place, which also has a little bit of a cultural aspect to it. But anyway, they had a cow in the back of their property, and they felt that it was like they cherished this cow. It had held some form of divine cultural significance for them, and that was just their thing. And to the rest of us, we're just like, cow, that's hamburger. You know, those are ribs, man. That's meat. What are you talking about? But for these people, it might be something different. And so when a player character looks at a creature and thinks of it as, no matter how evil or how dangerous or how how lethal a creature may be, killing it may make them criminals in this other culture. So let's go back to the Bahir, the Bahir may be breathing out lightning, and it's this centipede-like creature with an insect or lizard combination type head. Maybe this community has umber hulks that surround it, and so it comes across the player character, and the player character is like, oh, there's my experience points, let's go kill it. And so they plink it with their arrows and fire at it with their fireballs, and their chest is all puffed out like, yeah, we did our good deed for today. And then when they finally meet the wranglers, the one wrangler's crying, and the other people were just like, I can't believe what you did. And then, now their patron, that has been that gifted them the knowledge of corralling these creatures, may think differently about the player characters, and now maybe they try to arrest them and exile them from the city, and the player characters now have to make amends for the harm that they did for taking the life of what in their own culture, in their own society, is it's a monster, it's a beast, it's a dangerous thing. If we look back at Return of the Jedi, the name of the creature just left my mind. Wampa. No. Come on, you guys. You know what I'm talking about. Luke Skywalker stuck a big bone in its mouth, and then it cracked the bone, and he ran around and killed the creature when the Rancor. Yes, the Rancor. Thank you, Tesla Ranger. Yeah, thanks for popping in, by the way. Yes, the Rancor. If we remember from that scene, sure, we were happy that Luke Skywalker survived and got the hell up out of there. But there was a Wrangler that was pretty upset that his Rancor died. He trained this thing, probably raised it from birth when it was just a little tiny, little baby Rancor, sitting in his little in his little pen, and he probably fed it and read it stories, and of course a bunch of criminal adversaries were fed to it when it got big enough, and well, that's just a side effect. Yeah, the Hutt says, hey, I need your Rancor because I've got to have some fun killing people, and that's okay. But as long as the Rancor gets to eat something, no big deal. My baby Rancor. So yeah, those kind of things are. I love the idea of like exotic mounts, exotic hunters, exotic beasts that leave behind strange and bizarre elements from its waste or whatever, harnessing its poisons, harnessing its skin, and using that in the society. And then also the people having a different opinion of their relationship with those animals, or even sentient beasts and such. For example, you can have, let's take dragons, right? We imagine dragons as being the apex predators, the king of the world, the ones who study magic and sleep on top of the hordes of treasures and such. But if you have a people that worship, that respect the power of dragons and have a cult dedicated to dragons, they will protect dragon eggs. They will feed the dragons. They will bring to it food and treasure and things that desires. They will clean the dragon and maybe help shed its skin if dragons shed their skin like mundane lizard-like creatures. They may bring to it magical books from slain wizards and such. And so maybe the dragon gives of itself to its people. So maybe if a dragon passes away, there's this big, great a ceremony and such. And then maybe then and only then are the parts of the dragon harnessed and used as like a form of honor. So the claws and the skin are used as dragon scaled armor, and maybe there's a gland inside of the dragon that can be used so that, you know, put on the head of a pike, and then that pike can then breathe the dragon's fire or something if it's a red dragon, of course, but you can do this with any dragon. And then maybe their goal is to go around and protect dragon eggs and have them raised, because when the dragons get older, it is as close to gods to these people. And so on one hand, they may be seen as dragon hunters, and they may be very skilled at hunting dragons, but they would never think to hunt a dragon. Instead, they track down dragons and then support them, protect them, raise them. Prue Prue says, now I need to use phase spiders as guards. My character is still fairly low level. Phase spiders, blink dogs, wow, displacer beasts. What's something else that kind of moves and blinks around and disappears? Maybe they are related to Fae, or maybe there's something otherworldly. So maybe something comes from another plane of existence through these creatures. So maybe like phase spiders and blink dogs and displacer beasts are like half here, half somewhere else. And by an association with the creatures, something from these other worlds also comes back with it, and that these people can use. So maybe somehow phase spiders allow the people to phase as well. So maybe a phase spider is worn. I don't want to say worn. The phase spider attaches itself to the back or shoulder or chest or the head of a trained warrior, and then that warrior can then phase with the spider in and out of reality and strike hard. Maybe if the space, that would mean if the phase spider is small enough so that it can kind of wrap around their body, and I can imagine like the limbs like wrap around the chest or the shoulder or something. Piggyback rides, absolutely right. Phase spider attaches to the person does a lot of the work. Phase spider is like, wow, this is kind of easy. I don't have to expend myself except for a few times, right? RP Gamer says maybe the dragons actually consider the humans as their domesticated beasts because they are tending the lands to keep it fed and protecting it in their way. And of course, flip the script, right? The people think that they're in control. The dragon's like, nope, I domesticated these people. They're my pets for, for the next 1,000 years. I did my part. And in some ways, people, it is viewed that lupines have that, just like cats too, right? Have cats and dogs domesticated us versus us domesticating them, because they sure have made out like a fat rat, right? I mean, there are tons of us that there's a multi-billion-dollar industry supporting cats and dogs and the things that we love about them, whether you pick one side or the other. And so maybe maybe these dogs that we love today, or like the wolves, were like, we can use these humans. I mean, they feed us, they groom us, they take us for walks, they protect us in their constructs that protect from the weather. Man, I guess I get to sleep all day. I get to chew on their those things they wear on their feet. I don't know why they wear things on their feet. Let me go chew that up and make sure they're barefoot or something. You know what I mean? Like, so there could be this idea that imagine a community takes the creature, domesticates the creature, and then you find out that the creature has been domesticating the people all along. I would dare put displacer beasts in that category. Like, I don't think anybody could ever really domesticate one, but maybe they use other people to take care of their small young, and then when they're done, they turn on them. Like, hey, thanks for raising the little kitties. Time to eat you. RP Gamer says maybe we began by using them, but now they begin using us. And also, that could be that's a story element unto itself, right? So these this culture has been protecting and raising and cultivating whatever exotic, monstrous, mythological creature there is, but slowly and surely that culture has been used, been subverted by this other creature or being. So, maybe if these people are using lizards, the non-intelligent ones, so maybe like like the wyverns and giant lizards and other things, and maybe this dragon has been like sitting in the background like, okay, I'll give it another 50 years and they'll be nice and ripe for me to just step in and take control of them. And that might be the next step. Or maybe the animal intelligent creature is beginning to get more is being bred with far more intelligence, and eventually that intelligence will equal and then overtake the community that intelligence is in. And of course, we don't have to necessarily make the people that have these creatures, they don't have to be nice about it, right? If the community says, if they randomly pick members of their community to sacrifice themselves to feed these creatures, that may just be part of their culture. During the mating season or growing season, they all get together and pick a stone out of a big basket or something, and everyone picks a white stone. But if you pick a black stone, or the red stone or the stone with the painted symbol on it, sorry, you're beast food for this time. And so maybe a player character or an NPC has left this community, and the people in that community are like, no, you have to come back for the growing, the harvest season. You might have to sacrifice yourself for these beasts. They're the ones that have allowed us to live as long as they have. And of course, you have stories where maybe a great cataclysm made these creatures come out of the ground, or the people were overrun by an enemy and they had to turn to using what was normally a dangerous creature. Or the classic idea in fairy tale stories is an innocent person is confronted in front of another beast that is also harmed, and then the person saves the beast. Maybe there's a spear in its side or a thorn in its paw, and pulls the thorn out or pulls the spear out and saves its life. And now from now on, they have this eternal bond, and now everyone has this bond with these creatures. So a community, and remember, yes, player characters are the special snowflakes, but that doesn't mean there aren't cultures that have the same abilities. What if there's an entire culture that has familiars? It's just a normal part of society that when you come of age, you gain a familiar, and then that familiar maybe grows. So maybe they get a familiar as a little tiny frog that grows into a big frogamoth, big behemoth, giant 30-foot frog or something. Pru says a dragon behind a coup through a subservient race. They have so much time, they can let generations of humans pass and a civilization grow complacent and then spark riots from the servants, the long con. Yeah, dragon, and that's the thing, dragons, they don't need to push their plans in the way that humanity has, right? If they live thousands of years, they can let their plans come to fruition by just placing little seeds, pushing them just a little bit, allowing that, like you said, sparking riots amongst their servants, especially if they feel like there's a portion of this culture they want to excise. They need to use a scalpel to remove them. And so what the dragon considers a scalpel to us is riots and, overthrowing governments and assassinations and, executions in a public square or something like that. Those things can just be pushed by this being that has a very extended lifespan. And so therefore, when the player characters interact with them, not only do they think that they're raising these exotic beasts or something, but there's an even greater power above them telling this culture what to do and how to do it. And so the player characters may have to um, snake their way through this culture to find out, and of course they're going to be stopped. Prue Prue also says some dragons would do it just for kicks. It's fine entertainment when you don't have access to Netflix. Yeah, I mean, why not? If you're immortal, it's something fun, you know. It's like a chess for dragons, right? Just moving people around as chess pieces for their own entertainment. There's the classic image of the Greek gods sitting up in the mountain, and it looks like a chessboard, but instead there's like when they look on the playing field, they see humanity through the clouds, and they can like pick and move people around. And when they move a chess piece down on Earth, it's like a mountain just was moved, or a big storm just happened, or a flood just happened by Neptune just dropping a drop of water down onto society or something. And what a great way for the player characters as they get higher level to lead themselves to a bigger and better threat. RP Gamer says a dragon could provide a young civilization with something and demand something in 2,000 years. Humans being humans would accept with attitude, well, we'll be long dead by then. Right. So in the beginning, the dragon says, hey, I will, make some grand prophecy or something, right? Some great laying down the law, right? I am going to be your leader. I'm going to grant you these gifts, give you these traits, blah, blah, blah. And then the humans are like, sure, whatever, we'll bow down. And they're looking at each other like, what do we care? We're just kicking this problem down the road. 2,000 years from now, it's not going to affect us. And then in 2,000 years, if that part of humanity doesn't remember the original deal, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. Or maybe they are acting upon a decree by a dragon, and they have no idea where that decree, like they're performing actions, but they are completely unaware of the end result of it, right? It's like, well, we do this because we were told to do it. We've always done it. We don't have to explain why we do it. It's just something that we do. Sure, we capture our enemies and take them up into the mountain and push them over into the into the volcano. I mean, it's just a thing that we do. Sure, you think it's evil, but we've done it for years, and we really don't have a problem with it. But anyway, wow, it's almost been an hour now. Yeah, I love talking with you guys. Backyard Beasties, just being able to take creatures, merge them into a culture, and then thinking of really cool, unique ways that culture uses those creatures. Whether they're animal intelligence, using them as hunters or mounts, or for labor to move great stones or things like that. Using them as guardians in the community. Maybe they, sit on top of buildings, or the people literally sleep next to them as they, rest in their backyards or something, kids playing with them and such. That could be something very exotic. And then, of course, extending this even further, that the people are being manipulated by the creatures themselves, almost being used as pets and such. But yeah, Backyard Beasties, grab those books with your monsters, insert those, maybe take a culture, insert those monsters within your game world, and just have a lot of fun with it. So I'm going to end with I got to do my little, self-promotion and whatnot. So you guys have a very good day. So self-promotion time. I'm DBJ, contributing writer to Critical Hit Publishing. I write the cinematic environs along with Alex and Rob, who are also excellent writers. We will be coming out with something new. We will be releasing something called Adventure Keys. These will be like simple 3 to 4 page adventures, each with multiple options so they can be used over and over again. Everything from like hooks and goals and threats and changes in each section will give you an opportunity to use one or more in those. And so you can mix and match those elements, making your own adventures within the adventure key, and you can easily insert them into your own world. They will be rather agnostic in their outlook. Also, the next cinematic environments being released will be vast plains. That boring area that most people hand wave when they cross from A to B. Yeah, an entire book dedicated to not making that scene boring any longer. Also, check me out. Join us at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I believe that is 3 o'clock in the morning on the west coast of the states, and probably 10 or 11 in the morning across the pond. So join me then as well for a live chat on Monday through Friday. Each day is a different theme. But yes, you can join me Monday through Friday to have a talk and just spark some ideas, get an idea you can steal. So thank you very much. I am DBJ, and I got to get to work. So you guys, I'm out.